why had there been so much antagonism, so much feeling of resentment, so much like it was when without there being any loving feeling, suddenly the loving feeling that was generating, that had come into play, had vanished again. There was only a feeling of... And yet the strange thing is that I recognized her efforts to give me something, to give me lower volume of the televisions she watched. That she seemed suddenly be able to sit watching tennis with the television at 9 or 10 instead of 16 or 17, because she knew I found it very intrusive. I coped, I've talked about this, but I coped by putting headphones on or earplugs in. I did my best to accept that she needed it. She's old, hard of hearing, okay. She refused to have her hearing checked. She didn't want to go through the route of hearing aids and all of this. She could just turn the television up, and she was used to that because she lived alone. But she wasn't living alone, yet she was still acting as if no one else was here. And I would check every so often, because I used to have to turn the televisions down. They just got so loud. Sometimes I could hear it with my earplugs in. But I really appreciated the difference having the lower volume produced. Her bedroom television on all night was on less, and when it was on, was much lower, and she seemed to be okay with that. So she'd found something that worked for her, that she was giving me, and she wasn't a victim, and it was very helpful, and I appreciated it. And yet, strangely enough, the feeling of resentment, of maybe it's just the feeling of needing this space. I need time away from her. I've made certain assumptions or certain feelings. I know certain angers have arisen that weren't expressed to her. I mentioned it to my sister, and even in telling her those things, it was almost like, did I mean anything? Why do they bother me? Why am I so affected by what it is she does? And there's this space between us that isn't filled physically. I sometimes think of the idea of hugging her. I see Nicola do it, and the moment Nicola does it, she's crying. Mum's crying because there's this fear, which she has to face. I have connected with her emotionally, verbally. We've talked. I felt connected to her, but I never earthed it by feeling like I wanted to be physical with her. I'm not physical with anyone really. Only Lisa has the hug. Something about that just seems doable. Nicola, there used to be. She would sometimes come and give me a hug. I'm okay with hugging, but actually I prefer to have physical distance. But it does create an issue. I don't know why I'm so reluctant. Something very physical about that. People need it. I don't. And they don't understand that wanting it from me and not getting it is going to create a suffering. Mum has a suffering as a result of that, and she fills in the gap with he doesn't care. What she doesn't understand is that her way of loving for me is smothering. She completely smothers you with her love and intention, a desire to please and give. It's smothering. I struggled with it as a kid. I still struggle with it now. And the only way I learned how to have her even slightly in my life was to make her feel, not intentionally, but that's how it would work out, distance. I would have to take myself away from her so that in effect she would kind of be hurt by it, so that she would shut down and not feel able to smother me, so that I could breathe. And as time went on, I spent less and less time around her, seeing her, talking to her for years and years and years. There was just nothing there for me. I couldn't get past the intense repulsion feeling that she somehow engendered in me. Even sometimes just speaking seemingly at the wrong moment puts me into a resistive state and helps me disconnect further. Maybe it's a protection mechanism. She's going to die soon, and if I connect with her in a way that she would recognize, I become attached to something that I can't be attached to. I don't want to be attached to anything. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't help me in any way. I don't enjoy the feeling of resentment that seems to arise. And when I do try to do something that is for her, unexpected, it usually fails. It doesn't come out, it doesn't come off like I expect it to. And it makes me feel like I have made a mistake. I've got it wrong again. When it felt like this feeling was telling me, you can do this. You can be closer to her. It will be okay. It will be possible. There's been enough time to get used to how it is you live with her, that opening the door a bit and letting her in and giving her what she wants, rather than having this powerful sense of I am only doing what I want. And I know it's in response to seeing her only doing what she wants. We're very similar. I'm her son. But it's also testing me. It's testing me to my limits. It's pushing buttons and constantly pushing those buttons that I've got no escape. I have to face them. I have to recognize it. And as Eckhart Tolle might say, if I can't accept things as they are, I have to accept how I feel about the way things are. And that's what I've been trying to do more, you could say. Just accept that I feel like this. And in doing so, at some point, it shifts, it changes. I've been spending, when Nicola is here, I spend more time around Mum, because I'm hanging out with both of them. And the television is left off, so I feel more welcome, and I'm seeing what it feels like, what comes out, what's said. And what that has shown me, the strange thing is that I get to see the way Mum changes when she's around Nicola. And I don't like to see that version of her. I've ruled that version out of my life. When it's only me and her, I don't see that version. She talks to me very differently. But she can't seem to stop talking to Nicola that way. That's how she relates to her. And Nicola and I talk in a very different way. And Nicola doesn't... She's better at letting Mum be that sort of mothery, smothery thing. She's only around for a day or two. And then it's up to her how long the time between is. And she can cope with that. She works with that okay. She was even able to have her come up and stay, and said that it was all right. So that allowed her to let go of the fear she'd carried about the idea of doing that. She helped a lot. She gave her a break. She gave me a break. And this is, again, this other aspect of my mum. The life takes her into a place where she gets looked after and pampered, her own room, visitors. There will be more visitors. I've heard phone calls of people already telling her they'll be coming up to see her, whereas last time only one person did. They're making more of an effort because this is more serious, and that's what they do. I know that at some point it changes. I'm okay with that. I don't want mum to suffer. I don't want her to be in pain and suffer for the sake of just being here longer. But it doesn't mean that you give up. It means that you let go. She doesn't quite see it, that she doesn't get it. The idea that letting go doesn't have to be giving up. That there are other ways to approach it, and she's scared and she's afraid, and it must feel very real. But she's in a good place, and there are people who will remember her. So she's like becoming part of the furniture, and whatever takes place, it's okay. When she makes it back here, if she makes it back here, then we carry on from there. But along the way, I still feel like I will make an effort. I think there'll be an effort made to go see her, just to go. I almost did it the last time and I held back. I've talked about this, so I won't go into it again. But it would have to be unexpected, and now I have more familiarity. I know how to approach it. I feel like I can just turn up unannounced, which is how I like to do things, and be acceptable. It be an acceptable thing. The surprise of it, just because she has a time to think, and it just resets. I want to give her the gift of peace, to not be afraid, even if she doesn't have a feeling of being able to do that. She's in conflict with what she may have said she sort of gets. She understands intellectually the idea that there is more, that life is continuous, that existence exists, the soul doesn't die. There's all this kind of rhetoric out there that one can take and find comfort in. Many people do. But when you're like us, where we don't hold an image, we don't carry a belief, then it's quite difficult. It seems like it's difficult for her to actually realize it, which again seems like a test. It's like her being asked to, she's being taken to her limits, to what she's capable of, or what she's been previously willing to look at. She's being asked a question, and she's been figuring out the answer for over 2 years now. It's been a hard journey. She's worn out. She needs to find peace. And what she's having done now is just to stop the future becoming very limited. They say that if she didn't have it done, she could be paralyzed. I don't know if it's could be or will be, but paralysis was mentioned, so of course you're going to have the operation just to see. Because you don't know, she doesn't know how much longer she's got, but it seems like this is the way people do it. That if you didn't take it, if you didn't have the operation because it was going to make it very painful for you, or going to be in pain a lot, it was going to be difficult, whatever, I don't know what's going to come from it, but that's what she was told. It's going to be very painful, but she will bear it. There is help. I get to see it, and maybe there's more, another chapter of the Denise and Simon story. It's hard to say. It may already be written. I don't know that. I'm just going with what happens, and seemingly it's better for me to just accept it as it is and not try to change it into something that I think is what I'm supposed to do. Make it like this, it's supposed to be like that. Doesn't work for me if I do, which tells me I'm getting it wrong. I'm making an assumption I don't need to make. That there is a part of me that recognizes something is missing, and I feel like if something is missing, then it ought to be found, because it must need to be found if it feels like it's missing. And it has to be how mum and me how I feel about her, that it can't fluctuate. I can't find some kind of meaningful feeling towards her and then lose it. That there must be something I'm doing, an old habit, an old belief, something coming into play that triggers the reinstatement of a lower state of being, a resistant, paranoid, negative vibration. It's a lower state of being, and somehow within it still find good to do, still do the right thing, still care in some way, even though there's such a big part of me that's sort of saying you don't care. Why don't pretend? If you don't feel it, you can't pretend that you feel it. Can't go, oh, I'm so sorry, give that. If you're not feeling it, I can't act. It has to be, I can't fake it until I make it. I have to feel it. And I have to feel that happens spontaneously, and somehow it doesn't happen. I see what is there. I see the feeling, I see the thought, and so I'm observing it. So I can't actually act with it. It doesn't become me. I don't identify with it. And so by seeing it, it dissipates, it changes it. Well, then give it to her as a gift. Don't do it for you, do it for her. I don't really understand that right now. Maybe I'll get there. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't happen. Maybe I'll miss out. All you had to do was just give her a hug and let it be as authentic as you could make it in the moment. She'll appreciate it. Just let it happen, and then it will open something or free something. And yet I get in the way. The feeling of letting it be as it is. This is how it feels, so that's okay. I haven't given up, and maybe I will get other opportunities if she's not having the operation till tomorrow. She's in intensive care for a couple of days after that. She'll be groggy, medicated up. So I'm not gonna, my sister might be able to make contact, I'm not gonna try. After a couple of days, I'll have heard, because my sister will have made contact, so I'll have heard what's taking place, what she's going through, what's happening. As long as I hear whatever it is I hear is okay, then I can continue with that idea. And then I will see how she is. Then I will ask her. Then I will either make a call or take a drive. Maybe I'll do both. It's not far. Even during the day, traffic's really easy. But if I do it in the evening or on a Sunday, it's a very painless drive. 40 minutes. If she's not well, if she's really suffering, struggling, then that seems like a no-brainer. I'll just go sit with her. It'll be okay for me to just sit with her quietly. Don't have to talk. I don't want to just come in and turn her television off, but I know her television will be on, and she will have it loud. She might turn it off. She has done it once or twice, but I find it difficult to impose that, because I can impose it, and it's a controlling thing, and I don't want to be a controller. I want her to value the fact that I want to say something, and you just automatically mute it or turn it off. It's what I always would do. I'm watching something and someone comes in, just pause it. Don't want to wait, can't do everything, but it'll wait. It's not important. Just be in the moment. I used to do that a lot when I was living with Patty. Always pause. Always give the visitor full attention.